Hello and welcome. You have joined DHEC's virtual public meeting on the Congaree River sediment cleanup. Please be aware that this meeting is being recorded. My name is Donna Moy. I am part of DHEC's community engagement team for the Office of Environmental Affairs, and I will be co-facilitating tonight's meeting along with Christy Ellenberg. Christy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. This is Christy Ellenberg. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Christy. Our last meeting on this project was in November of 2020, and we are so happy to be here tonight to let you know what project milestones have been met since that time and what you can expect as we embark on the next phase of this environmental cleanup. After many years of plans, meetings, and updates, we hope that you are as excited as we are to be one step closer to finally removing the tar-like material from the river. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us from your remote location. We have behind-the-scenes assistance tonight from a member of our Environmental Affairs Tech team. I'll ask her to introduce herself now.
Good evening, everyone. This is Catherine Yon.
Thank you, Catherine. Should we have any technical issues during this meeting, Catherine will help us work through them. DHEC staff and representatives of Dominion Energy are here tonight to address your questions after the presentation, and they will introduce themselves as they speak. We will be doing a few things to help prevent distractions and ensure that everyone is heard at the appropriate time. Please respect that all cameras have been turned off and all lines have been muted to minimize background noise and echoing during the presentation. Following the presentation, we will unmute lines and share further instructions so that all who would like to ask a question tonight are able to do so. As we hope most of you are aware, DHEC maintains a web page for convenient access to information about the Congaree River cleanup. Again, that web page address is scdhec.gov/Congaree River. If you have not already done so, I encourage each of you to go to our web page and complete the registration form for this meeting. This will let us know how you prefer to receive future information from DHEC about the cleanup. Tonight is really an opportunity for you to have an informal conversation with DHEC staff about the next phase of this project. Our purpose here is to share information, address your questions, and make sure that you know how to stay connected with us. We will now move on to our agenda for this meeting. DHEC's overview and next steps for the project will be provided tonight by Lucas Beresford. Please remember to hold any questions you have during the presentation until the questions and discussion part of the evening. Following the presentation, I will give instructions on how to participate from your remote location. We will then begin with questions and discussion by calling on those of you who indicate that you would like to ask a question. We will alternate between those of you who are joining online and those of you joining by phone. At the end of our discussion, I will make closing remarks and this public meeting will be adjourned. We do want to be mindful of our time together tonight and make sure that we hear from everyone who would like to ask a question. With that in mind, there are 3 guidelines that I will ask you to follow. First, please be respectful towards anyone who is presenting information, answering questions, or making comments. Second, please ask only one question or make one comment at a time. And third, please do not interrupt any speaker. With that, I know you are all ready and anxious to hear what we have to present to you tonight. So Lucas, if you're ready, we can get started with the presentation.
Well, thank you, Donna. I thank everybody for coming out tonight and joining us. It has been a long process, but we're getting closer to getting the river cleanup kicked off, and we look forward to sharing some new information with everyone. I'm Lucas Beresford. I'm the manager of the State Voluntary Cleanup Program. That's the area of DHEC in which this project resides. And we're just going to start off with a brief history of the manufactured gas plant, how we got here, talk about the selective remedy for cleanup in the river, and kind of a catch point of where we are and where we're going next, so everybody kind of understands the path that we have going forward. And then we're going to welcome any questions that you might have. So the manufactured gas plant that led to the problems in the river here was located on UG Street and operated from about 1900 to 1950. These plants provided the predecessor to natural gas to cities for lighting, heating, and all of the things that we use natural gas for these days. But there was a byproduct created from burning the coal material that was a tarry-like substance. And that's what you all hear us refer to as coal tar. Then, the operations of this manufactured gas plant shut down in the 1950s, and from 1950 to 2008, the facility was operated by the city as a bus terminal. DHEC entered a contract with SC&G, which is now Dominion Energy, to assess and clean up the manufactured gas plant in 2002. They did a lot of work assessing that site, and DHEC came to the conclusion that removal was the best course of action for remediation at the manufactured gas plant. So from 2019 to about 2012, about 140,000 tons of material were removed from that manufactured gas plant site and sent off for disposal. In the middle of that, tar was discovered in the Congaree River, and that kind of leads us to where we are today. This was the former manufactured gas plant up here, and there was a drainage pathway that led out under Gervais Street and out toward the Congaree River. That's how the material was able to get from the former manufactured gas plant to the river. Through the course of several rounds of investigation, the footprint of the contamination was delineated. The yellow area here shows the approximate location of the tar-like material within the Congaree River. And once again, you can see that pathway down the river channel and out into the Congaree. This material has not moved a whole lot. It's been there, anywhere from 120 to 60 years. So it's been there a long time, and it really does not like to move that much. It's adhered kind of to the bottom of the river. So this project naturally has a lot of challenges associated with it, other than just being in a very dynamic river and having to try to get the material out of the river. The river itself has a bedrock bottom, so the typical way of driving metal sheet piling to create a watertight environment to excavate material is not available. This was also during the Civil War, where Sherman, when he was burning Columbia, dumped unexploded ordnance from the Civil War era armory, Confederate armory, into the river in approximately the same location here. So there's the issue with potential historic relics and artifacts and potential for unexploded ordnance underneath the coal tar material that we're trying to excavate out. And due to sturgeon spawning, there's also limited time frames for work in the river. So you don't get to work the full year round to remove this material. So there's a lot of challenges that face doing the remediation at this site. But after a lot of careful consideration, the selective remedy for cleanup is what is commonly referred to by the department as the modified removal action. And this alternative will remove about 70-75% of the tar-like material from the river. It will remove it from the areas that are most common recreated. Some material will be in place that's in much deeper areas of the river that are not easily assessed. And then this removal will be split into two portions, which we'll see in the coming slides as to what that looks like. The main reason we're looking at the modified removal action is, as we had looked at a full-scale removal action, the cofferdam was causing rise in the river, and that was something that could not be overcome to obtain an Army Corps of Engineer permit. They wanted the rise to be minimal. So with the new option, it minimizes the rise to less than a foot, whereas a full-scale removal action looked at about 8 feet. So when we talk modified removal action, this is kind of a zoom in of that previous area that showed you the tar-like, where the tar-like material was present. And this shows the thickness of the material. So you can see the solid blue line represents the areas where removal will occur. The inside line here represents the inside of the cofferdam that will have to be constructed. The dotted line represents the outside of the cofferdam that will be constructed. So this is area 1, and area 2 is down here, the inside that would be excavated out, the dotted line that shows the footprint of the cofferdam. So if we look kind of this is looking at it from the top. If we kind of look at it from the side, this is what we're looking at. This is the cross section. The black circles represent the areas. This is area 1 that would be excavated, and this represents area 2 that would be excavated. This number, the first graph here, represents going down this line closest to the shore. The gray material shows where the coal tar is present. You can see in that area there's some very thick deposits here in area 1, and then some thick deposits here in area 2, and these are the ones that are closest to the shoreline. When we look at the cross section 2 going through here, there's still some pretty thick deposits in area 1 that will be excavated out. In area 2, that's where we start getting into deep water. The water's typically about 10 feet for area 2 and 3, and there's some very fine tar material there, but not nearly as thick as it is in the other areas. So that's why the modified action makes sense here. Those areas would remain, but would have a minimal impact. So what you can kind of expect to see, this first picture here is a view from the Gervais Street Bridge looking toward the Blossom Street Bridge. When the cofferdam is constructed, this is the structure you will see, the rock-filled cofferdam here, and then some markation outside of it to let people know that, you know, they're coming into close proximity of the cofferdam. And this top view is the conceptual view from the West Columbia side looking into downtown Columbia. So that kind of gives you a general idea of what it would look like. From a design standpoint, the cofferdam cannot be designed not to be over top because the water level in that river moves a lot. There's a lot of variability. So the cofferdam has to be designed to safely overtop, be able to drain the water out of it, and then begin excavation again once the water has been removed. So it will require some piping to be put in to allow water to drain out of the land side of the cofferdam once the river levels have gone down to a point that can be done. There will also be, you know, a rather extensive water treatment system that will be put in place to treat water that comes in contact with the sediments behind the dam when it's overtopped. But the design of the cofferdam is made so that it can sustain the overtopping events that, just looking at the historical trends, will happen through the course of this project. To help prevent any erosion, some concrete mats are going to be placed over the dam once it's been constructed. That just helps kind of hold everything in place. This is what those mats typically look like. There may be some slightly different variation because this is kind of the conceptual design at the moment, but this picture here would show kind of what you would expect to see in the construction of the dam, that you would have this type of look when the operation is going on. So some of the good things that have happened since our last meeting: in December, the Army Corps of Engineers issued their nationwide 38 permit, and DHEC's Bureau of Water issued their certificate to construct under the Army Corps of Engineer permit. So those were the major permits that were outstanding that we were waiting on to move forward with the removal, and that we promised to come back to the public once those achievements had occurred. In February, DHEC signed and executed the action memorandum to document the selection of the modified removal action as the cleanup alternative of choice for the site. And then in March, Dominion worked with Army Corps of Engineers to do a recertification of the nationwide 38 permit that they had received in December. And that was kind of a technicality of where the issuance of the original permit came in the time frame that the Corps is allowed to issue those type permits. But from that side of permitting, all of those are now in place, and we're ready to start moving forward. So I think some of the questions that have been asked is, what is this going to look like when the construction actually starts? And this is the conceptual plan. At the current moment, Dominion has put the contract out to bid to do the work. They've received bids from several contractors, and they're in the process of finalizing which contractor will be awarded the job to do this project. So in the coming months, things are going to start looking significantly different down by the river. The green area here that's highlighted is area that will basically be off limits for the course of this project. And the time frame that we're looking at for the removal to occur is in that 2 to 3 year time frame. That if conditions are favorable and everything goes right, it may be able to complete in 2, but hopefully by the end of 3, we can definitely be done with this project. So with this figure, the blue lines out here show the locations of the cofferdam. The gray inside show the access roads that will have to be built to get the material to and from the river. And the main office trailer park will be right up in this area here, which is right on the river side of the parking lot off Gist Street. But this area will be fenced off. Access will be restricted. It will no longer be we know that there's a lot of recreation activities, and that boat landing is frequently used by people to get in and out of the river. That is not going to be available once this project starts till it's completed. So for a 2 to 3 year time frame. The typical hours of operation with personnel on the site is going to be from the hours of 7 to 6 Monday through Friday. Being sensitive to the businesses and residents around the site, truck traffic will be limited to non-peak hours between 9 to 4 and trying to avoid those rush hours in the morning and the afternoon. There's a lot of material that's going to have to be moved in to build the dam, and then there's a lot of material that has to be moved out in the form of the contaminated sediments. And once the removal is complete, the cofferdam needs to be removed. The rock material that is brought in to build that will have to be removed as well. There will be 24/7 security during the duration of this project in place. And the kicker is the construction of the cofferdam is only allowed between a limited time frames of May and October due to the sturgeon spawning season. What that means is if the cofferdam is constructed this season and we get too close to October that we cannot remove the whole cofferdam or complete the work behind Area 1, that cofferdam is probably going to be in there for the whole, a year until the next May when that work can be completed. Now, work can be done behind the cofferdam once it's been constructed, but we cannot construct or deconstruct the cofferdam after October until May the following year. The next thing is the truck routes. The trucks bringing material in will come down UG Street to Senate Street and will come in down Senate Street. When the trucks leave, that's the blue arrows here, they will come down Senate and take a right onto UG and come out to Blossom. The next figure shows a little bit better route from the quarry. This is where the rock will come in from. They'll exit from the quarry, they'll come out to 77, they'll get on 20, they'll come up to 126, they'll come down UG and on to Senate to bring the material in, and then to exit, they'll go out Senate to UG, down UG, across Blossom, and back to the quarry. Similar route for trucks taking the sediments out, only they will come back down and connect to 77 and take it out to the landfill. Now, knowing that there's a lot of material to be brought in, a lot of material to be brought out during this process, and Senate Street is a good access point, but we do not want to completely disrupt Senate Street during this process. Dominion's looking at a likely staging area at the former MGP location, which is a couple blocks up from the site. The site's down here near the riverfront part. So they would come down UG, come down Senate, and then back out. And the purpose of this would be to limit the number of trucks on Senate Street at any one time, prevent them from backing up along Senate and causing a nuisance, and really allow traffic to continue to flow down those areas. So the trucks that they could bring in and get into the work area to get the material out, they'd bring in, they'd stage the rest, and as they sent the ones out and got them out, they bring the next group in. That's the conceptual plan at this time. So going from there, there's a lot of things that have to happen in a very constricted time frame here. We had hoped to receive the permit from the Corps much sooner than we did. So we're pretty much going wide open, trying to get everything ready to try to get out in the river this season and not lose the season. So Dominion is in the process of their contractor selection. That's kind of the first step. They have 3 contractors. They all have similar approaches, but slightly different. So once Dominion selects their contractor that's going to do the work out here, they'll submit a formal work plan to DHEC for review. We'll review it, make comments, get any edits made that we need to. And Dominion will need to start some of the pre-mobilization activities, kind of getting some things set up for the removal action. Another piece is knowing that there will be a lot of trucks moving up and down Senate Street. Dominion's proposing to do a vibration study along Senate Street, kind of get a background reading, and then run some trucks up and down at different speeds with different loads to try to find out what the optimum speed and load for the trucks to minimize vibrations is down that road. And there's some more on that in a minute once we get through this slide. But once DHEC has reviewed it, gotten the work plan to the final state, we'll approve it. Once that happens, Dominion can mobilize that. We're targeting May timeframe for that. Dominion can mobilize the remediation contractor and begin all the setup and all the prep work that has to happen for this project to move forward. And kind of in that May, June timeframe, they would also be looking at starting to bring in some of the stone for the construction, beginning clearing the area where the footprint of the cofferdam is going to go in place for UXO. And then hopefully in June or early July, we can begin the construction on the Area 1 cofferdam. Now, with the schedule kind of being aggressive, there's some potential setbacks that we just kind of have to look at and work through. Dominion's in the process of making their contractor selection. Like I said, the contractors all have slightly different approaches to how they'll go about it. So once they've made that, we can start working through those logistics with them. But the things we can't control are river levels, unfavorable weather, kind of the things that they bring, which is the water clarity, which all can have some hindrance in what we're able to do in the river. Again, river flooding, the UXO removal is another that will have to be accomplished before the excavation can really start. And then another piece that has to be done before the construction of the cofferdam can even start. So that those things are kind of dependent on the water levels and the ability to get in there and survey those areas and make the determination. And then some of the schedule is going to be determined by what the pilot study says for the vibration study, because that could be a limiting factor on how many trucks can get in and out in a day and things of that nature. Also, the city of Columbia has been doing some sewer work that we're going to talk to here in a minute on the next slide, that also slow things down slightly. So this is some pictures of the sewer work that's being done on Senate Street now. It is expected to be completed by the end of April. Dominion wants to get in and start the vibration study here on the street, but they have to wait till this construction is done and the repairs to the road have been made and the repavement has occurred to really be able to get in there and get any meaningful data from the study to see, you know, how much can these trucks bring in and what speed is the safest speed to bring them down Senate Street. So I've mentioned it a few times, this is kind of the next piece and part that's got to happen to help determine how the construction is going to move forward. Is Dominion's proposing to look at some simulated truck traffic and measure vibrations, get some background levels for a few days of the normal traffic flow, and then use all this data to help determine how can what's the optimal conditions to bring these trucks in so that those can be adhered to during the construction. And so the basic proposal, the red dots are the buildings that they would be looking at, and the yellow dots would be the monitoring points that they would put into place to monitor the level of vibrations at the different speeds and different loads of the trucks. So that kind of brings us to our path forward, where we are, what's going to happen next. Dominion's going to select their contractor soon. Once they've done that, they'll submit the work plan. Once DHEC has reviewed it, gotten it its final state, we'll approve it. And with that, that will kick off about 2 to 3 years of construction and removal. The main point that we wanted to bring out is coming as soon as May, the river access down off Senate Street is going to start to be restricted, and it is no longer going to be an accessible access point because all of the construction activities that are going to be set forth to do this project. And the hopes are that we're able to really get this kicked off come summer of 2022. And we are going to continue to populate our website as things are happening, as plans come in. Our website down here has all the documents, all the correspondence that we have with Dominion moving forward. As those plans come in, if you want to see them, we will be getting them on our webpage. We're also talking about, during the process of construction, creating kind of an updates page where periodically we'll put some new pictures, some new statuses, and kind of where we are in the process so that people can kind of follow along as we go. And I want to thank all of the partners and stakeholders that we have had involved in this. We've had a large group of people. The ones you see here with DHEC is Greg Cassidy and myself. We're here to answer questions, as well as Tom Effinger with Dominion, Paul Berry with Dominion, Rusty Control is their consultant. We're all here to answer any questions that you have about, where we're going and what to expect. We might not have all the answers, but if we don't, we will try to get back with you with those answers when we get them. But we've had a great group with the property owners, the Congaree Riverkeeper, the City of Columbia, City of West Columbia, the Governor's Office, and representatives from City Club Condos and the Girl Scouts of America in working through this project, coming up with how we can get it done, and then getting us to this point. And we're very thankful to all those who have participated in those working group meetings and helped us get here.
Thank you, Lucas. That was a lot of information. We had a lot to catch up on since we met with you last. So I do see we already have hands going up. If you would just bear with me for just a moment. I do have just a few things to mention before we get started with our questions and discussions. Please remember that we will be alternating between those of you who are joining online and those of you who are joining by phone. You will be called on when it's your turn. I promise we will get to everyone. So if you could just have a little bit of patience with us. For those of you joining online, you can let us know you would like to speak by raising your hand using the hand icon or the microphone icon on your screen. For those of you joining by phone, you simply press *6 on your phone. After we have noted who is raising a hand or unmuting, your hand will be lowered and you may be muted again to reduce background noise until you are called on. When it is your turn, I will call on you by either your name or the last 4 digits of the phone number you're calling from. And as I pause a moment for us to note those who are indicating they would like to speak, I will remind you that if for some reason you're having trouble with muting or unmuting your line, you can connect with us after tonight. We welcome any questions via phone or email. And also just wanted to remind you of the ground rules for us to follow during the discussion tonight, with asking one question at a time, please respecting everyone who is speaking, and waiting your turn to be called on. So with that, I see that we are already noting those names, and we will get started with Paul Gaffney. Mr. Gaffney, you can unmute your line and go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Lucas. Great presentation. Very interesting, the vibration testing that Dominion's contractor will do here in the short term. And that's valuable information, but it's an instantaneous vibration test. And rough calculations, somewhere around between 4,000 and 5,000 full truckloads will go up and down Senate Street. About the same number unloaded truckloads will go up that street over 2 to 3 years. So once they get the instantaneous vibration information, might they consult an engineering modeler that can project the long-term effect of that many trucks causing that instantaneous vibration every time, what that effect would have? Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Mr. Gaffney. Lucas, you can go ahead with an answer.
I think I may defer that to Tom to give some feedback on there, since they're kind of leading the charge on the vibration study.
There's Mr. Effinger there. If you would just make sure that you introduce yourself, Mr. Effinger, and we appreciate you being here tonight.
Okay, hey, I'm Tom Effinger. I work for Dominion Energy in the environmental department. And as Lucas mentioned, we also have Paul Berry, who's also in the environmental department, and Rusty Control, who's been helping us do the conceptual design and planning for this project. So with respect to truck traffic, the roads are designed to handle, that truck traffic. We are testing for vibration, and that's really out of just a courtesy to the neighbors to minimize vibrations that they may experience during the project. We're going to do our best to minimize them. We can't do this project with zero impact, but we're going to do it safely. We're going to do it effectively, and we're going to try to minimize the impact to the people that are closest to it. So long term, once we get those results, the vibrations are minimal. The roads will be able to sustain that. I don't think the number of trucks traversing that road is going to have an impact. We have committed to repair any damage that's caused by the truck traffic, and that's not only to just repair it and do it right, but to minimize those potholes from creating further vibrations. And at the end of the project, likely we'll be repaving the entire street. So, that's our plan. We had hoped to get in and do the testing before now to get that baseline that Lucas mentioned. We were not able to do that because, as you see, the city moved forward with some sewer work. If you noticed in the pictures, that work does include putting stone back in the excavations, and they're putting flowable fill on top of that, which is actually better than what was there before. So, that may help us. We'll do the vibration monitoring. We'll look for ways to optimize and reduce those vibrations, and we wouldn't expect it to have significant impact long term.
Thank you, Mr. Effinger. Mr. Gaffney, I see that you have another question. We do want to make sure that we get to everyone tonight. Do you have a follow-up question?
No, I have other questions, but I'll wait my turn.
Okay. Thank you so much. We will move on then to Charlie Ledecker. Mr. Ledecker, you can unmute your line.
Thank you. I have a lot of questions, but I'll start way back on Lucas' slide 11 or something, about how the coal tar moved from the gas plant to the river. your one statement was that the coal tar doesn't move much. It's been in the river for 120 years, but it doesn't move much. I'm still puzzled about how nobody has found any coal tar between the plant and the river. It somehow worked its way down that tiny little drainage, propelled by, rainwater runoff and gravity, but once it's in the river, it doesn't move much. So have you guys seriously considered that more testing needs to be done in that drainage way, or just considered the possibility that it was deliberately dumped in the river?
I think there's been a lot of investigation as to how it got there. It's really hard to say for certain fact because we're talking about something that happened anywhere from 70 to 120 years ago. But with these type facilities, they were typically near some type of water source. They needed that for the process. And looking down that historic drainage path, there's demarcations along the stone drainage pathways that show tar going up taller than I am. So the speculation off what we found is that, the discharges to the tar was probably at high flow rates for that stream when they had a large rainfall event, and that it just carried it out. And some of those markings along the drainage pathways from these historic stone structures that have been out there, you can still find the tar going down them and see them. And it kind of supports that conclusion. But as you get out of that little tributary to the Congaree is a lot wider river. If there's less velocity, and as it gets out past the rocks, it seems to have settled out in kind of a alluvial fan movement there, as there's not as much pressure pushing that water and tar. Once it starts settling, it really doesn't want to move anywhere.
So Lucas, would you say that we're seeing a similar pattern from former MGP plant sites throughout the state?
I would say they're all different, but they're all near former water bodies, and typically there's some component of cleanup associated with it. Maybe not to this level, but there typically are some historic impacts there.
Yeah, this is Tom. I'll just add to what Lucas said. A lot of times when these plants operated, they would have kind of an oil water separator, and they didn't work all that well. Tar could leave the site. It could be in a coagulated form. But then once it gets out to the river, like Lucas described, it can drop out, settle to the bottom where it would stay. We did do a rather lengthy investigation. We did like 5 phases. We actually went down below the Blossom Street Bridge looking for additional remnants of the tar. And so that added quite a bit of time to our initial investigation. So, we cleared the area between Blossom Street and Gervais Street. And those maps that Lucas had on the other figures kind of shows where all that ended up.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Effinger. Mr. Leadecker, I'm going to let you go ahead with another question because we don't have that many questions that I'm seeing right now. I do know that we need to get back to Mr. Gaffney, but for everyone else who's listening, please indicate that you would like to speak, or if you have a question by raising your hand, and we will note that and call on you. So while you do that, Mr. Leadecker, if you wanted to ask another question, and then we will move on.
Thank you. The last article I saw in the state quoted the total cost of this project, 17 million or something like that. And I think that number, I'm not sure where the number came from. It may be 8 years old, but I'm curious about what the total cost of this is when you put together the removal action, the UXO contractor, the archaeological contractor. And you have 3 bids now. Are any of the bids under $20 million?
Mr.
Yeah, hey,
Effinger?
this is Tom again. Yep. Yeah, so we're still reviewing those bids. When we do that, that's kind of, it's a sealed process. We don't discuss the bids until we get through that process. But looking at the overall cost, yeah, that 17 million likely is an old number. We're continuing to refine that number because it's not only, like you said, the people in there with the yellow iron doing the heavy equipment. We'll also have security, cameras, office trailers, discharge to the POTW. I mean, there's going to be additional costs. You're right, Charlie, but we don't have the all-in cost yet, but we're in that ballpark. I'll just leave it at that. The other thing that we're up against is we don't know how often the river's going to overtop us, set us back. So there's going to be charges with delays, while we wait for the river to subside, additional pumping costs, water treatment costs, those kind of things. So they're going to continue to accumulate. I would guess, it's going to be a little north of 17. So.
Thank you so much for that. I do want to make sure that we're getting back to you, Mr. Gaffney, but before we do that, I have a Michael Mayo. I believe, Mr. Mayo, do you have a question? You just unmute your line.
Hey, my name is Michael Mayo. I'm with Palmetto Outdoor. We're one of the outfitters that put people down the river and affected by tourism and things like that. Have there been any I got a lot of questions, but have there been any hydrology studies that affect the West Columbia side of the river? And has there been anything, any studies that involve access to the western bank?
You may hit that, Lucas.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So there were quite a bit of, there were a heck of a lot of hydrology studies in order for us to get the Corps permit. The reason being, like Lucas showed you, that cofferdam, probably go to slide 16 if you can. So that cofferdam at low water levels acts like a bathtub and it displaces water.
Right.
So you see that area 1. Yeah. So until it gets overtopped, it displaces the water that would normally be inside of that. So it does cause a slight rise to areas surrounding it. But when it does get overtopped, then it has a negligible effect. It's just, however much stone is there, which is essentially not noticeable as the river exceeds that, that elevation. The elevation that we're using is about 10 foot above normal. But the western bank is still accessible. We would ask people to stay away from the rock cofferdam. I know it's going to look enticing and probably like a good place to land, but for safety reasons, we're asking people to stay away from that. But your access from the western bank will not be affected. But we're going to have navigation buoys out there and just ask for the public to treat that area with respect. We safety is number one, and we don't want to have anybody getting hurt out there.
Is it okay for me to follow up real quick?
Yes. Yeah. Good
Sure,
question, though.
So my understanding is that the then cofferdam will stay, or a portion of the cofferdam will stay throughout the construction process, and so nothing will be removed completely during the process.
The project's going to be done in 2 parts. You have the area 1 and the area 2. The construction will begin in area 1, and that cofferdam will be constructed. Once the removal behind that cofferdam is completed, that cofferdam will be taken down, and then the cofferdam for area 2 will be built. If the cofferdam, we are limited to constructing between the months of May and October. So if we construct and we're not able to complete the removal in phase 1 this year, but we're not able to take all that material out, the safest play would probably be to just leave it in place to the next season rather than take part of it out and run the risk of having issues with that. But area 1 would be constructed, the material removed, then that cofferdam removed, and then area 2 would be constructed. Does that clarify your question?
It sure does. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayo, and we will come back to you if you have another question that you would like to follow up with. I would like to go ahead. We have another Michael, I believe, who is joining us. I don't have a last name or a phone number, so there's someone named Michael who is with us tonight who has a question. That is not.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we sure can. Please go ahead.
Thank you for taking my call. You were mentioning that this is a $17 million price tag, and and I'm hearing things like, well, this coal tar is kind of static and it's been staying in its place. I did a little bit of research and I found that it can be a carcinogen and it can be mutagenic to some wildlife. But is there a place that we can see how much bang for the buck are we getting for $17 million? I mean, if it is that static, can you elucidate a little bit of that for us?
I'm not sure who would want to first start with that one. Lucas, you?
I guess I can take a shot. Basically we have a situation out there where we have tar material in an area that's frequently recreated by, a lot of residents in Columbia, West Columbia, all around. That, especially come summer season, that's a hot spot of activity. Through our process, we, evaluated where's the contamination, what is it, and what's the best way to deal with it. And in all the projects that we have dealt with Dominion on, and we've had a lot of MGPs across the state, their preference was always, if we can remove the problem, that's the best way to go. That's why we saw 140,000 cubic yards removed from the manufactured gas plant. If this is left here, it's going to continue to be a nuisance and a problem for, a long, long time. Is it harmful? We're not seeing it in this surface water. There's periodic surface water sampling taken. But it is something that we've gotten a lot of reports of people getting into the tar. What do we do when we get into the tar? And if people are washing it off right when they get it on them, there's probably not a huge concern. But the reason we're going after this material is there is some risk associated with it.
Okay, I really appreciate you answering that.
Thank you. You mind giving us your last name so I can.
Whitaker, Whitaker.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, I do want to jump back now, Mr. Gaffney. I believe that you stated you had some follow-up.
Yeah, I have two short, unrelated questions. I'm just curious, how do you remove the UXO before the cofferdams are built, considering it's probably at the bottom of all of that coal tar-like material? And the second question, the first one I think is for Tom, the second one for Lucas. You used the word conceptual several times, Lucas. We're interested in when there is going to be for the record traffic plan. You outlined a lot of it here, but it's conceptual. When do we see the for the record plan so we can comment on that? And then I'm done. Thank you.
Tom, if you'll let me take that piece. Well, Paul, all of the traffic route, the finalized traffic routes, all of that will come in with the work plan. Those are components of the work plan that we're looking to see. The reason we have conceptual on a lot of this is with the layout plans and things like that. Each contractor may have a slight different variation, but the route in and out is the only route in and out that there is, basically. So that we don't anticipate those to change. But there may be some slight changes to that footprint as to exactly where things are. But conceptually, they all, and Tom Mike can speak further, all of their contractors have the same basic structure of how they're going to do the job.
Yep, that's right, Lucas. The plans that you saw that Lucas had in his slides, those are very similar to what we had permitted before when we were doing a pilot study out there in 2015. Those are plans that have been shown to the city. We still need to go back and get permits from city DOT to do that. And it is important for those big trucks to make right-hand turns. And so you see them take kind of a roundabout way to get from point A to point B. And that's, using roads that are more, sized for that kind of traffic. So getting to your first question on the UXO, we do have a UXO contractor on board. They are going to be going out and surveying the footprint of the cofferdam before we actually start placing the stone. Then once we get the area inside the stone dried out, they'll be out there with survey equipment, also looking for the magnetic anomalies then and doing their thing to remove safely. I'm getting some feedback, but safely handle the materials. Yep.
Yeah, Tom, thanks. I had heard Lucas say they were going to do the UXO before the cofferdam was built. They'll build the cofferdam and then do the UXO, correct?
There's two components of that. The first is the marking of the footprint of the cofferdam, which has to be done before the cofferdam can be constructed. So that piece will be done up front. Once the cofferdam is constructed, the area inside of Area 1 would be scanned and any UXO would be removed.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question. We are still noting those of you who have questions. We do have quite a crowd with us tonight. We were really happy about that, and we do want to make sure that you use this time to ask any questions that you may have about the project, and want to make sure that we get to everyone that we have not heard from tonight as well. So I believe there's someone calling in with the last 4 digits of their phone number, 4031. If that is your phone number, you can hit *6 on your phone and ask your question. Last 4 digits of the phone number you're calling in from are 4031. Do I hear somebody unmuting? Okay, we do have the slide up about unmuting your line if you're calling in from a phone number. You just press *6 to unmute your line and you can begin talking. Okay, I'm not hearing anything. You can please indicate again that you have a question. We'll be glad to get to you. We'll be here as long as we need to be to answer any questions that come up. So we're going to move on now to Ted Fettner. Mr. Fettner, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I think Dominion a while back came and did a study of the structures along Senate Street, which is where we live. And I'm curious, we've not received any feedback on that study. And also, I'd like to have someone expand on the vibration study that will be done, which seems to be primarily concerned with the street and not necessarily concerned with the structures, of which there are at least 4 on Senate Street. So somebody could at least expand on that. I would appreciate it.
Tom, I don't know if that's something that you might want to
Sure.
talk a little
Yeah.
bit, but as you do, Catherine, if you would maybe pull up the visual with the vibration locations, that might be helpful as Tom is speaking. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Tom.
Yeah, no, thanks for your question, Ted. The vibration monitoring is to monitor the vibrations that are transmitted from the street towards the buildings. You can see the monitor locations in this figure. The red dots are on the buildings that will be monitored. And so the homes along Senate Street, you can see a red dot there with the yellow vibration monitoring locations. But it's really for us to gather a baseline, like Lucas said, to find out, what size trucks can we use to minimize vibrations? How fast or how slow do they need to go to be able to minimize those vibrations, but then still be able to get the job done? Obviously, we could slow the trucks down to a snail's pace, which is going to make this project run much longer. There is going to be quite a bit of truck traffic, as Paul Gaffney pointed out earlier. And there will likely be something, at the height of, bringing in stone and taking material out. It could be anywhere from 30 to 60 truck movements a day. So, that's really the goal. We had hoped to be able to get that study done before now. I know that once we get that data, get further down the road with our contractor, submit that modified removal action work plan to Lucas. And get some more definition on everything else, all the pieces and parts that go into this project. We do commit to come back and speak with City Club Condo, and we're glad to do that meeting with y'all. So hopefully we'll have we'll have more information then, and hopefully be able to give you more clarity. But yeah, thanks. Good question.
Sure. I would just add to that, we've seen over the last month the city's project on Senate Street with the new sewer revamping, and we've witnessed a lot of vibration from that project. Of course, trucks and digging are two different things going on here, but we certainly are aware of what would happen with trucks going down the streets. We appreciate your coming back to us at some point and having further discussion about what you find out. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Mr. Fettner. I did want to just mention, as Lucas had pointed out in the presentation, we do expect activity to start picking up around the river. So now is a great time. We don't normally have Dominion in the same room with us, so to speak, to be able to ask a question. So if you have any questions about, what the next steps are, what you might be seeing, or access to the river, like some we've already heard, now is a great time to ask those questions. So I do want to go back to, I know that Mr. Ledecker, I believe, had another question. Mr. Ledecker, if you don't mind, I do see a hand raised.
Yeah, I just unmuted. I have a few more questions, but on this subject of the vibration monitoring, I'm still not getting clarity. At City Club, we consider the 4 buildings along Senate as 4 separate structures. There's one red dot, and the Gist Street has a row of about 8 or so. We refer to them as individuals. Individuals own them. Are there going to be individual monitoring locations on each of the individual townhouses, or is it just going to be one in the middle? I'm not clear on that.
I'm not sure, Tom, Lucas or Tom, I'm not sure which one has the most detailed information about the vibration monitoring test and how it will be conducted.
Yeah, so the yellow dots are where the vibration monitors are located to be an indication of what's happening in those buildings. And we'll be moving those around, adjusting them as we do the test. We're really following the advice of the experts on this. And it's going to have to be a process, where you do some iterative studies and go from there. Rusty, I know you've talked with WSP a little bit more than I have. Do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, sure. My name's Rusty Control. I'm a consultant that's been working with Dominion on this project for a number of years. Charlie, there are actually two things going on here. The vibration monitoring, which is the slide that's up now, is going to monitor the vibrations from the trucks going up and down the streets, as we've talked about. We're also going to do, as part of this study, a dissipation study. So we're going to take those 4 monitors and we're going to line them up around William Street and move them further off of the street to see if there are vibrations at the curb, what those vibrations do as you move further away from the truck potentially generating the vibration. And the other component of the project that we haven't talked about that I think addresses the first part of your question about the multiple structures, we're going to do crack monitoring. So there were some existing cracks in the structures detected. So we will put crack monitors during the active construction out to monitor to see if those cracks actually expand. And if that is due to the vibrations caused by the truck traffic. So it's a dual phased approach.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. The initial study last August 18th and 19th went house by house and documented the condition. So what I was expecting was that's the existing condition, and how are you going to monitor potential damage from traffic or whatever vibration, so that there's going to be a potential for, compensating an owner for damaged structure or whatever. So we're looking for something really concrete from Dominion about when we're going to know and how we're going to be informed of, whether or not these cracks are getting worse.
Thank you for that question, Mr. Liedecker. Tom, I believe that you had mentioned a few minutes ago that you were willing to come back and share the results of that test with the residents there in that area where those monitors are going to be located. Do you already have a plan beyond that, or are you waiting to get those results in and then develop more details after that?
Well, the crack monitors that Rusty mentioned are going to be located where the existing cracks are already observed, and to see if they grow in any way, shape, or form. The meeting with the City Club condo owners, we used to do those frequently. Then with COVID, we kind of got away from that. But we do want to get back out there and meet with those folks, give them a chance to ask questions, give them more detail, about this study before we actually get out there and start doing the work. So I wish we had the vibration studies done already, but unfortunately we were not able to get that started. So Charlie, we'll catch up with you on that as soon as we can get that, those studies done, get some information from that, and just have a robust discussion at that time.
Yeah, I think what people would really like to know, especially my neighbors on Senate and Gist Street, is how often we're going to get an update about, well, we've gone 3 months and the cracks are the same, or we've gone 3 months and this crack has expanded by 10% or 20. So we're really looking for a very, very robust feedback as this project unfolds. That's not a question, so let me segue into a question. There's nothing on your schedule. You kind of stop at start building the cofferdam. Do you have a month and year when actual removal is going to take place? Your slide, slide 21 on the schedule.
Yeah, so we had hoped, beyond all hope, that we would have gotten a core permit spring of last year. That would have been ideal, which we didn't. We had hoped we would get one by June of last year, and we did not. Then we were hoping for September to be able to keep us on track for having a timely start this year. We are behind the 8 ball to get started this year. There are lots of other permits that come after the core permit. Lucas talked about a couple of those. We've punched the clock with DHEC on getting their permit. The Corps actually had to reissue their permit because nationwide 38 only lasts for 5 years. And this year was a year it was due to expire. They had to reissue those. We had to resubmit to them. We got the nationwide 38 back from them actually just March 16th. We were trying to get a contractor in place. We have to line up things with the POTW for that contact water discharge. We're working through a construction stormwater pollution prevention plan permit. And there's just a whole myriad of things that we need to go through and get done, as well as get our contractor in place. It's likely that we won't be in the river till at best June, perhaps July. Like Lucas talked about, if we can get the cofferdam built this year, that would be great. We have to put that reinforcement on it. If we can get it dewatered this year and survey for the unexploded ordnance, that might be a win for this year. And then that cofferdam's going to sit there because it's built and the area's been surveyed. And so we're ready to do the excavation. That might be all we get done this year, but it'll sit there and we'll come back again next May or whenever the river subsides and it's conducive for us to do that and start the excavation work in Area 1. It's likely we could get it done in one season. It would have been nice if we could have started May 1st, but that didn't happen. And then Area 2, which is about a half acre, should go much faster. But again, it depends upon what the river elevations do, what storm events do, all those myriad of things that we're going to be bumping our heads up against trying to get this work done and adjusting on the fly. This is not an easy project. It's not something that a lot of folks have done. Work that's been done in the river, like Lucas said, is typically done behind sheet piling. So this is a new cofferdam design that's going to be somewhat difficult to build. If we get disturbed, while we're building the cofferdam, that might set us back some. So we're really dealing with a lot of variables here. I wish I could give you a better answer. Our answer all along has been, it's likely to take 3 to 5 years, and it really depends upon what the river does to us. So, again,
hey, Charlie, let me add to that a little bit. What you see here is kind of a tentative schedule of all the things that would have to do to get us started this year and kind of where they're going to fall. Once Tom has selected a contractor, part of what he's going to get is a schedule moving forward to get these pieces and parts done, and we'll know more. But the whole purpose of this was kind of give the tentative schedule that there's a lot of work that's about to start happening down there. The look of the area is going to change slightly as all these pre-construction work gets done, and mostly get the word out that this is moving forward. There's pieces and parts falling into play, and the access points that have been used before are going to disappear shortly as it gets locked down for this activity.
What I'm hearing is that there's going to be 3 years of truck traffic and then 1 year of environmental remediation instead of hopefully 2 years of truck traffic. It sounds from what Tom is saying is we're not going to get any coal tar out of the river until 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Ledecker. I think, I know I've seen your name often in these meetings, so I know that you've been involved from very early on with this project, and you probably more than many know how many moving parts there are and how it is a test in patience. So I think that Tom has answered that question to the best of his ability for tonight. And we do certainly want to make sure that we're getting to everyone tonight who has another question. So if you have a follow-up question to that, I would ask you just to hold on to it for a little bit and let us move on to hear from someone who hasn't had a chance to speak yet. And I think that next person would be Steve, and I really don't want to butcher your name, Kozlowski.
That's very good.
Well, thank you for saying so.
Much better than most. Steve D. Kozlowski.
Please go ahead.
First, I'd like to really commend Dominion, Tom in particular, for taking on a huge project to get this legacy pollutant out of the river. You know, this is going to be a waterfront for the city eventually, once this is all done. And that all that pollutant has to be out of there before the rest of the city and the rest of the population around the city can enjoy that area. So thank you, Tom. I know it's complicated, but I appreciate the effort here. My question is, there's really a number of folks who go down there and use that area. Are there signs already up telling them that, this is not going to be accessible in the near future?
Thank you for that question. And Tom, I think that might be one that's best for you to be able to answer about how you plan to notify people who use the river about the limited access.
Yeah, there will be signage. We'll also have, security fence up with signage attached to the fence. I think the other plan is to have something that explains the activity, what all is going on and why. All of that's in the works, but that's further down in the details, Steve. And I do appreciate the compliment. We're working as hard as we can to get this thing started and to make it move forward and to do it safely and effectively. But yeah,
I appreciate that. But maybe some of that signage can get up, fairly soon, because there's folks who, aren't here at the meeting and still aren't aware of it until the fences go up. So maybe a little warning would be helpful.
Yep. Yeah, and we'll be working on that as soon as we get the contractor on board. We need to meet with the property owner, review, those kinds of issues, and everybody agree on what's appropriate. But yeah, thank you for that. Thanks for that comment.
All right.
Yep.
Thanks.
And I don't think it would be going too far out on a limb to say, Steve, if you have some suggestions on that, please reach out to us. We will definitely provide an update on our webpage. But if you have some other thoughts on how best to get the word out, please feel free to share those with us. And as we move forward, we'll make sure that we're trying to do our part to get the word out as well. Okay, so again, tonight we are here to give an update on the next phase of this cleanup. I'm hearing some great questions. It is about 7:45. So I want to make sure that we are getting to address any questions that any of you may have. That's what this meeting is for you to be able to have a conversation with us and with Dominion about what you're hearing or not hearing about the project. We do want to make sure that we're hearing from everyone. And we will be, as has been indicated, we will be having the opportunity to provide regular updates via our webpage as the project progresses. Certainly, we're open to future meetings if we need to do that, if that's the best way to share information with you. We're always really happy to get feedback on that as well. So if you have a question, we will be glad to answer. Please just indicate so by raising your hand using the little hand icon at the top of your screen. And while we wait on that, Mr. Mayo, I did want to jump back to you. I think that you had indicated that you maybe had another question.
I sure do. Yep, I'm unmuted. A real quick question. So kind of related to the comment earlier, when ordinance is found or when you're regarding Sherman and whatnot, is there a policy or a procedure that has already been formulated for when some type of unexploded ordinance might be found?
As part of the process with the Corps, dating back to the original thoughts of this as a full-scale removal action many years ago, there's been a series of plans out there for, how to locate the ordinance, what to do with the ordinance. There'll also be certified personnel there to handle anything that has come across through the process and make sure it's safely handled and disposed of. With what we're dealing here, how much of it would be considered live versus, artifact, we don't really know, but that's for the professionals to kind of evaluate make a determination and then follow the procedures that are outlined for addressing them. And I believe there's 4 plans in place as part of that permit application, and will be probably part of the work plan as well for doing this work to show how those will be addressed.
Because I'm also very excited of the historic relevance to everything that's taken place. And I commend you for taking this under. Can I do one follow-up?
Sure.
Yes, you can.
With you pointing out the Girl Scouts of America, their regional headquarters is right up the road. Is there a reconstruction plan, some type of a plan to revitalize the area and bring access to the river?
That's a great question. I'm not sure, Lucas, if you want to answer that or if Tom wants to answer that. But I did want to hop back a minute to the first question you asked, Mr. Mayo. And I believe you said earlier, Tom, that you did already have a UXO contractor on board. So I didn't know if you had anything that you wanted to add to what Lucas, the answer that Lucas gave on that question.
Sure. Yeah. So the second part of Mr. Mayo's question was about the historic significance of those artifacts. So those will also be, collected, cataloged, preserved, conserved, and turned over to the state. We do recognize the significance there. That was also part of the core permit, was to develop that that MOA, memorandum of agreement, with the different resource agencies that deal with historic artifacts. So anything that we collect will be conserved and preserved. One thing that Lucas mentioned is they emptied this material from the arsenal. Typically, you wouldn't fuse something that was in the arsenal, although if there's anything with gunpowder in it, what we've been advised is that gunpowder becomes unstable. Even though it's been underwater for 70 to 100 years, it can become unstable. So we're going to treat it with the utmost caution. Again, we have the experts that are going to verify what shape it's in and then manage it appropriately. So all of that is just another hurdle for this project.
We look forward to the discoveries that are found.
Yep. Thank you.
And I didn't want to lose the second part of that question concerning revitalization of the area afterwards. I don't know, Tom, if you've gotten that far yet with the discussions on this project.
Well, I think as far as that goes, Dominion North South Carolina owned this property. I've heard discussions about, revitalization, things that might come after this project's done, but I think that would be purely speculative to add any shape to it. Once this project's completed, I'm sure the property owner will begin developing his plans to do what he needs to do next.
And I would like to add that we love the area, and we have customers that drive from Florida to see the area, and anything you can do to make that the Columbia side of the riverbank look good will help out for tourism.
Thank you.
I'm sure the residents in the area and other people who use it love it just as much as you do and as we do here at DHEC, and I know that Dominion does as well. So thank you for that question.
Thank you.
So I do want to be mindful of our time. It is almost 8 o'clock. Even at home, I know that sitting in one spot for that long can get a little tiresome. So I do want to encourage you, if we haven't heard from you yet and you have a question, please feel free to ask now, or as always, follow up with us after the meeting. But if you have a question, now's the time to raise your hand to let us know. And if we don't see any other hands, Mr. Liedecker, I know that you have another question. Maybe if you could ask one more question, and then if you have any more, if you follow up with us after tonight, we'll be glad to answer the remainder of your questions.
Yeah, final question, sort of related to Mr. Mayo's. The archaeological processing of the material, it comes out of the river, and then it's going to go to a processing site somewhere. Do you guys have a location yet where that is going to be?
I'd say that the conceptual idea is that the majority of the screening for artifacts of this material as it comes out will be conducted in a designated area at the landfill. There will be some processing capabilities near the site to kind of potentially do some screening if it needs to before the materials taken to the landfill. But the majority of it will be done in a staged location over there. If Tom, you got anything you would like to add to that, or?
No, that's essentially it. It is important that we're able to move that material so that we can keep the production going to be able to get this sediment out of the river. We're going to catalog the area that it comes out of so that at least they have some kind of, reference, to document, where it came from, which, is important. But it's all about trying to keep the production going, allow the time that they need to do that archaeology work, and do it right.
So they're going to process at the landfill. They're going to have an area at the landfill where they're able to dry it and sift it and screen it.
Yep, that's what we're working on.
Okay.
Yeah,
that answers my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And I'm not seeing any other hands raised at this time. So I do want to say once again, thank you to everyone for joining us tonight with your comments and questions, and thank Dominion staff for being here to assist us with the questions. I will remind you that the presentation that you were shown tonight is posted on our webpage, and a recording of this meeting will be posted there as well within the week. I think as a wrap up, what I heard as far as next steps aside from the project is that Dominion will be doing some follow-up with the City Club residents concerning the vibration monitoring study as it evolves. And as for DHEC's, from DHEC's perspective, we will make sure that we're using our webpage really as a vehicle to get information out. But certainly we are open to having additional meetings or getting information out other ways that are most helpful. So if you have any suggestions about that or any comments about that, we'd love to hear it. We definitely want to stay connected with you. So please feel free to reach out to us by phone, mail, or email if you have questions after tonight, or if you're interested in discussing specific aspects of the cleanup project. We will be happy to talk with you more. You can reach the project manager, Greg Cassidy, at 803-898-0910, or Lucas Beresford at 898-0747. So with that, Christy, do we have anybody else raise a hand?
I don't see any more hands at this time, Donna.
Well, with that, we are right at 8 o'clock, so we are going to go ahead and wrap up for this evening. Thank you again so much for joining us. This meeting is officially adjourned, and you may disconnect at this time. Please stay safe and good night.